Alright, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you my Arrma Typhon 3S 1.5 year of ownership review. We've had this car for about 18 months, and so today I'm just going to go over all of the stuff we've had to do to it, some of the modifications, just a lot of the high wear parts that we had to replace, and really our honest thoughts on the car. So let's get right into it. So the first issue we really ever even had with the car, and this was within 1 month of having it, was that the wheel fell off. And this is like a really big issue with the Arrma Typhons, and I know there's a whole bunch of videos about people talking about how to fix it. And basically the most common fix is just Loctiting the screw that causes the wheel to fall off, and then it shouldn't happen again, but for some reason it keeps happening for us, even though I Loctited it, so I think maybe I just need a stronger Loctite. But anyways, this is a pretty annoying problem, and I think it's just a design flaw on Arrma's part. Okay, so the second issue we ran into, and this was about after 3 or 4 months, and this isn't really an issue as much as it is just a maintenance thing, but the original tires that it came with had worn off pretty quick, and this is probably just because we ran on asphalt too much. But we went ahead and bought some DB Hoons for running on the street, and then some other like cheapy aftermarket off-road wheels and tires off Amazon. So that's just something you're going to have to be mindful of if you have this car, that you're going to have to invest some money into tires because it will wear them out pretty quick. Alright, so the next thing is really like our first big issue, because the other two things so far have been pretty minor, but we basically had to replace the whole gearbox because the spur and pinion were almost completely stripped. The spur gear is plastic and it actually comes with a metal pinion, but even the metal pinion had started to get worn down a little bit, so we went ahead and just replaced both. And this cost actually surprisingly more than I thought it would, probably about like 30 bucks, but then the car was back in action in no time. And even this I think may have just been because we were running it on the beach, and I think it may have gotten some sand in the gearbox. So still a pretty understandable issue, and we run it pretty hard up to this point. The next thing we had to replace was actually the servo, and this was about 8 to 10 months just because the old one went bad, and we went ahead and replaced it with a nicer brushless servo that was quicker and stronger. And I would even recommend this even if your original servo doesn't go bad, just because I think the car handled better and was more responsive with the faster servo. At the 1 year mark is where we really replaced a lot, and we even considered just scrapping the car, but we went ahead and decided to try and fix it anyway. So the rear diff went out, followed shortly by the front diff, and inside the diff we replaced the plastic diff case with a original plastic diff case from Arrma, and then we actually bought a metal input gear to replace the plastic input gear that had been in there, because we noticed that the original input gear was worn down a lot more than the diff case was worn down. And then we just kept the same interior planetary gears. And the second thing we did at 1 year mark is also we replaced the suspension and steering linkage with carbon fiber aftermarket ones, just because the original ones had like gotten super loose around where the ball joint was, and the little plastic pivot ball had walled out the head joint, and so the whole car was actually starting to be like super loose. And these carbon fiber ones seemed to work alright for a little bit, but then they ended up breaking as well, because I think it was too thin around where the ball joint is. So that was disappointing. And then at about 13 to 14 months, the front right drive axle between the wheel and the diff was very worn, where it slides in and out for the suspension travel, and that was causing it to be able to slip. And so we went ahead and bought 4 metal replacement axles, but then we just only replaced the broken front right one, but we're probably gonna have to replace the rest of them soon. Alright, and now finally we get to the most recent modification that was only like a couple of days ago, so this would be 1.5 years of ownership, but I finally had to replace the carbon fiber suspension and steering linkage with some stronger metal ones that will hopefully work better. And then I just had to fashion some spacers to fit them in the mount, and then I through bolted the whole mounting bracket just to hold the linkage in place. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up, and now I just want to give you guys some general notes and things I've noticed about the car over the 1.5 years that I've owned it. So I just want to say that it is actually a pretty high-speed car, and especially considering the price range, I think that it's actually held up amazingly well. You know, the number of times we've crashed it and beat it up, and it still is in very good shape. Like the body and chassis, you know what I mean, they're a little bit scratched up, but they're both still in good structural integrity. However, I will say I'm pretty disappointed about how loose it is. Like, I noticed a lot of the parts like the wheels are really loose, and I don't really know how to fix it. I've tightened up screws and stuff, but a lot of the plastic just seems to be pretty flimsy, and it doesn't really hold up over time. Like, I'm not even talking about breaking, but I mean like it seems to just like, you know, become loose and like wear out and wallow out and stuff. But on the other hand, I would like to say that we haven't really had a lot of plastic parts breaking, and I think that that's in part due to, you know, Arrma's flexible, malleable, yet really tough plastic. So I can say that that's good, you know, especially for the price range. It's held up pretty well. Additionally, I would like to see something done about that whole wheel falling off problem, because like I said, even despite Loctiting all the wheel joints, we've had almost all of them fall off at some point or another. Additionally, I'm missing 2 of the original body clips, which again, this is not that big of an issue, but it's a little pet peeve. Like, why couldn't they have just put a magnetic body on or something like that? I know a lot of other manufacturers do this, but again, it's understandable for the price range. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and like sum up the timeline of events. So we didn't really start having any major problems until 6 months, and I'll tell you, we probably ran the car the most in the first 6 months, and so it's really impressive. It held up extremely well through a good majority of its life, at least the life that we ran it in, until we started having issues at 6 months, and that was already after we'd taken it to the beach a couple of times. Then after 6 months to a year, we replaced a lot of parts, and it seems like it still seemed to have a lot of issues. And then, you know, at a year, we did go ahead and replace a lot of parts and really invest quite a bit of money into it, and it still seems like almost every time we take it out, there's a new problem, and it's almost more work than it's worth. But I will say that it's still just as fast as it was, and all the electronics and motor and all that seem to hold up very well, except for, of course, the servo. But, you know, just be aware of this when you buy it, but, you know, you can't expect it to last forever, and I'll say that it has held up, again, extremely well for the price range. So, definitely good bang for your buck. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I would really appreciate it if you just give this video a like, or even put a little comment down below. I put quite a bit of time into this video, and it's nice to receive some feedback.